Nah, I think that y'all are not aware of certain shit.
And see, I
got abducted before by extraterrestrials.
What?
Do you believe that? Look me in my eyes.
What the fuck? No, absolutely fucking not. Because you're still here on the internet raising hell.
Look me in my eyes.
No.
Can tell me I'm lying.
You're lying.
That's the problem. I'm aware of something you're not.
So tell me what happened when you were abducted. Before we move on.
I told your story like 5 times already.
Okay, I haven't heard this particular story.
Okay,
I'm sure my viewers haven't heard it.
Right now.
Okay, tell me.
I was on a table, and my body was on the table.
Okay.
And I was on a ship, and it was all metal, like a spoon. And I was looking down on my body, and my body was like chest down. I was looking at the back of my head, and there was some beings operating on my 33rd vertebrae, and it felt like it felt like when you take 2 wires and you touch them. And they kept going like that with my nerve. I don't know what it was. Don't have me get the line. But it was right here. And I could look all around me, but I couldn't look to the right. It was a being right here to the right. But it didn't look like me or you. I don't know what the fuck it was. Okay. But it was whatever it was a masculine being. And it was talking to me telepathically. And they told me it was the captain of the ship. This is a true ass story. And they told me it was the captain of the ship. And I asked the being, like, it wouldn't identify itself though. When I asked specific questions like, where you from? It didn't answer. And I asked him, like, what you doing? What are you doing to my body? And it was like, we fixing you. And the being asked me for my permission. I gave it my permission. And then it kept touching, it kept going like this with my spine. And I kept feeling my pain increase. And I remember I was just gritting my teeth like, Argh! And it was, they say they were strengthening my nervous system so that I could channel. And I believe that because I do channel. But it was clicking me like this. And I remember the pain was increasing and the being kept communicating with me like, are you okay? Can we keep going? I kept saying, yeah, I could take it. And I was trying to be tough and take the pain. I remember the pain got so excruciating, I just came back to my body and it ain't brought me back.
Do you believe that maybe you probably
had
a hallucination due to all the books you were overloading your mind?
Grand Rising and attention to anybody who is watching this video. Today we're going to be doing alien abduction stories, people who have been talking about their abductions under sleep hypnosis. You know how I feel about intro. Let's just get into the video while I play Jenga.
Yo, have you heard of the Betty and Barney Hill alien abduction? So Betty and Barney just got married, right? And decided to go on a little honeymoon trip to Niagara Falls. So they're driving along the road and see a large light. They don't think nothing of it. They're like, yo, this is probably like an airplane or helicopter. But then it starts getting closer and closer. So they start freaking out. They decide to stop the car, get out the car, and see what this is. Barney grabs his binoculars and sees a disc-shaped object with windows and gray little beings in those windows with big black eyes. They're like, hell nah, we gotta get out of here. Let's go. They get in the car, they dip off. I would've too. I don't play that. Good thing you got a black husband. They suddenly feel drowsy and lights out. So they regain consciousness 35 miles away from where they originally were, with no memory of what happened. Over time, memories and nightmares of what happened starts coming back. So they tell a local newspaper that interviews them, and they tell how they got abducted by aliens. They're like, no, this can't be true. You just want some clout. But no, Betty shows them a star system in the southern constellation, which was never discovered before. So they're like, okay, but we still think you're lying. And they put both of them under hypnosis.
She was telling me something. What did he tell you? To keep my eyes closed. Don't open them. Never seen his eyes before. God, give me strength. All right. Pull him down.
I want to listen to more of these hypnosis tapes.
Did you feel you were going to be operating on? No. I was laying on the table. I thought if I keep real quiet, I won't be harmed.
Being who he is in 1961, he's active in civil rights in his local community. He's a target, and he's somebody who's been hassled before, absolutely has. So he's now in this trauma again of being out of control in a place where somebody might hurt him. When we look at what Betty's going through at the same time, she's actually talking with these extraterrestrial entities. Barney's in this total mode of, I need to shut down, I need to not be here, I need to close my eyes. Betty is actually presented with a giant needle that they intend to put in her abdomen, and she tells the ETs, that's going to hurt me. And they respond with, okay, they're going to alter something so it's less painful for her. This right here, which is a star chart shown to her by the extraterrestrial entities, saying where they come from, where our Earth is in relation to where they are from, and where their trade routes are connecting other stars.
Excuse me, trade routes? What, trade? What do you trade? What are they trading? Both Barney and Betty described humanoid creatures abducting them during the hypnosis, but Barney said that he did actually have his eyes closed for most of the abduction and the exams that the aliens did on them because he was so scared. It was a man named Benjamin Simon who would do the hypnosis sessions on Barney and Betty. He met the couple in December of 1963 and then started doing the hypnosis sessions about a month later in January 1964. After each session, he would reinstate the memory lapse or the lost time because he didn't want to re-traumatize them. During the hypnosis, Barney recalled that the leather strap of his binoculars actually broke when he was running back to the car initially when thinking these creatures are going to capture us. He remembered taking a sharp unintended turn where they came to a roadblock and were surrounded by men. He stated the car had actually stalled at this roadblock and also again described that the men were not quite human. The group came towards the car and told Barney not to fear them. The leader of the group stared into Barney's eyes and essentially forced him to shut his own eyes. He stated the leader told him to shut his eyes, but then the leader's eyes were essentially like pushing into his eyes and forcing his eyes to shut. He stated the creatures would often stare into their eyes and it would have this mesmerizing but terrifying effect. Something really freaky that Barney said during the hypnosis was, "Oh, those eyes, they're in my brain." So freaky. Barney and Betty both shared that they were taken onto a disc-shaped craft where they were then separated to be examined. Barney would then be told to lay on a small rectangular table where he would be examined. Trigger warning for this next part is very sensitive subject matter. Barney stated that the examiner placed a cup-like object over his nether regions and took a sample of something that rhymes with perm. His skin was also scraped, his mouth and ears examined, and the creatures then counted each vertebrae in his spine. He could hear them speaking another language, but they were speaking to him telepathically and they were speaking English. He remembered being escorted back to the car, watching the spacecraft as it left. He remembered him and Betty coming to that fiery orb in the middle of the road, and he was thinking, oh no, not again. Scared that this abduction was about to happen again. Like I said, Betty's story was extremely similar to Barney's, and very different to her dream, because it really matched Barney's story. Betty would be under extreme emotional distress when describing the capture and the examination. Because of this, the hypnotist actually had to stop the session numerous times because she was crying so much. The hypnotist felt that Barney and Betty's memories were fantasy inspired and inspired by Betty's dreams. Both Barney and Betty rejected this theory, and Barney finally started to accept that they had been abducted by aliens because he had had a hard time accepting this or wrapping his head around this. Betty was the one who really felt strongly that this is what happened. Despite the fact that the hypnotist believed that it was fantasy inspired, either way, the hypnotist sessions did help both of them with their anxiety, so it was all for the best in the end anyways. Barney and Betty both went back to their regular lives. They would share their story with researchers, but weren't trying to make any money or publicize what had happened.
Imagine waking up to this, trying to break into your apartment. Well, this was the case for ex-Marine Trell Copeland. In 2007, Trell captured footage of what he believed to be a UFO from his Suffolk, Virginia apartment. It was an orb of light, he said, just a big ball of light. It wasn't moving, it was solid white, and the other one was right across the street from it. It was up 300 feet from the ground and changing colors rapidly. Copeland recalls feeling like something was wrong and that he shouldn't have been witnessing what he saw. But he alleged that it wasn't until he posted the footage online that things got even more bizarre. He said, "I woke up from a nap from the sound of someone trying to break into my apartment. He asked who was there, but there was no answer, and then suddenly, the doorknob started to shake and there was scratching sounds coming from the other side of the door." He said he kept a firearm by his bed and he was going to go and check it out, but all of a sudden, he became paralyzed and could move nothing but his eyes. He then heard a voice come from behind the door saying, "You don't need the weapon, we won't harm." He stated that he soon also started to miss time. There was 4 hours of his night that he could not account for, and after taking some time to process things, his memory started to come back. He stated that he was in a room with a female alien who looked exactly like you think she would look like. She had the black eyes that you always hear about and an elongated skull. He said that she did not have complete human features, and it completely startled him. Things even more scary, it was reported by the military.
Okay, so my tower failed. Let me just put it all in there. Let's get into the next video.
And I almost felt like I was about to start lucid dreaming. And I kept seeing this giant wheel, and the only way that I can describe it is if you guys have seen that, it's called CERN. If you guys haven't looked into it, just look at it, and it kind of looks like a portal, and it's got like lights around it. That's what I was seeing, but it wasn't white lights. They were like yellow lights, and it was like circles inside of circles, and it just kept spinning. And it kept spinning to the point to where I got even more uncomfortable, and I was trying to kind of shake myself fully awake, and I wasn't sleeping. It's like I was kind of in this in-between, like I can't really describe it. And so when I finally opened my eyes, my room looked normal, but there was a gray standing at the edge of my bed, like at the foot of my bed. And I wish I could really describe this state that I was in, because it was almost like it was an astral plane, but it wasn't. It was extremely real. That's just how it felt. And I was just screaming. I was like, oh my God, like I need to call my friend. There's a freaking alien in my room. And I call her and I'm freaking out. And it's just like staring at me. And then I see a smaller gray kind of on the side of my bed. It looked like a child, kind of had its hands like propped up on my mattress, you know, like big eyes, whatever. And so the alien starts to freak out, and then he runs and puts something on my dresser, and then runs through the wall, through the fucking wall, you guys. I look at my dresser to see what he put down, and it was like this statue, a statue of two hands holding each other, like holding hands. And it had words on it, and I know it had something to do with hybrid children. And so I turn around, and there are these two people standing in my room, and they came to me because apparently I was supposed to heal them or something. And I was all types of confused, y'all. These two very humanoid looking beings, but they weren't fully human. It's like they were both hybrid. I'll finish the story in part 2.
Part 2 is just basically about her coming back from the experience.
How were they gathering eggs and this, and they told me they were making a hybrid race.
And for what?
They didn't. When I wanted to know for what, but they never gave an inkling of what it was for, or what this hybrid race would be doing, where it would be, or what. My grandfather died in 1940. So this was in the 1930s when these things were happening with them. She said they would be sitting on the side porch at night, and they would see lights over the oil wells, and a lot of times they would see what they thought were little children dressed in white running around the oil wells. And on several times they saw it in the daytime. They would see these little children dressed in white, and once or twice they got up to go see if they could catch the little children and find out who they were, and they would start out, but by the time they would get there, the children would be gone. The main concept was creating a hybrid breed. At least that's what they told me, that they were trying to create a race of people that could live in our atmosphere and in their atmosphere. And they had not yet produced that person. Now, on another occasion, I remembered being shown a baby that really favored my grandson a lot. If you would, give it the slant eyes, they weren't as big as their eyes, but it looked human. And I knew that this was my child, and I wanted to take that child with me, but they said that it would not be able to live in this atmosphere. And that's the first thing that let me know that it was real. And beside this knot, which might be, you could say that it could be anything. The bruises are real. Nobody is beating me up in my sleep, because if anybody hit me that hard,
I don't have the marks on me anymore, but when I tell you a week ago, I still got a bruise on my thigh, but it's on a part of my thigh that I can't show y'all. And I had a mark on my wrist. I have 4 marks on my legs, and I was trying to figure out what happened because I got up with all of these. I got up with a bruise on my leg, 4 marks on my leg, and 1 mark on my wrist, kind of like right here, and it's gone now. I had looked in the mirror when I got up today. I'm like, dang, it's gone. That is a real thing. Waking up with marks on your body, bruises on your body. I have no idea where it came from and why it disappeared all of a sudden now. I'm not gonna just make this up or tell you this just to relate to the story. This is something that I actually experienced. I wish I would have took a picture of it, but it was like a brown mark right here. A bruise that randomly popped up on my leg. Actually, let me see if it's still there. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. But I'm saying this, and you ain't got to believe me. This is just from my personal experience. I have been getting up with marks on my body and bruises that I don't know where it came from.
And the places where I have the bruises, I couldn't give them to myself, and like I said, if I bumped into something that hard, I would certainly remember it. So it's real to me. I was at peace with what had happened, knowing that there's nothing that I can do about it, because I cannot stop them. Nobody can stop them from doing what they want to do. Nobody on this earth, because they are too far advanced mentally and technologically. We don't have a defense at all.
Like they do magic.
Yeah, they could come in today and take over if that was their desire. But like I said, I don't feel that it's their desire to take over through violence, and they don't care about governments.
As we're both watching and listening to these people's encounters, I personally feel like if these beings are doing this type of stuff, they don't want this stuff to come out to the light. And the fact that it's been publicized and these people have not gone missing, these people are able to freely talk about what their experiences were, gives me the insight from my own personal discernment, purposely allowing this information to be released, a soft UFO information, so that we can kind of know what's going on, but also not believe it. Because that's the best way to hide something. That's the best way to keep things in order. If they could just come here and take over, they would have already done it. And partially, they are already doing it now. But what's one thing that everybody can agree on in this entire planet? That we have free will. You have the right to remain silent. You have free will in Christian religion that God has given you to make your decisions. Even showing cases of angels falling of their own free will. We have free will. That is something that a universal law that cannot be taken advantage of. But there's a way around consent, and why these gray aliens that everybody has been seeing and encountering are able to do the things that they do. Same way, just like the Matrix. Same way, just like how this world has certain qualities that none of us will never understand. Why we have to pay for water, why we have to pay to live and be born on a planet that we naturally come to. You may not know that you are consenting to this planet's agreed upon consciousness, but you are, because there are ways around it. Let me show you.
There are 2 kinds of law on the earth, as I've said. One is called civil law, which is the law of the land, and one is called maritime admiralty, which is called the law of water. Maritime admiralty is banking law. And the law on the Maritime Admiralty says that you, because you came out of your mother's water, are a Maritime Admiralty product. This is why the ship is sitting in its berth and is tied to the dock, and the captain has to give a certificate of manifest to the port authorities. This is why when you were born, you have to have a birth certificate. It's got to be signed by the dock, because that's where the ship is tied to, is the dock. So the dock signs your birth certificate. Why? Because you came down out of your mother's water. You came down her birth canal. You are a Maritime Admiralty product. And therefore your birth certificate is signed by your mother. And where your mother signed on the birth certificate, get it, you will see it does not say parent or mother, it says informant. Your mother was informing the bank that she has just produced another product to be bought and sold. England, the British Crown, through international banking, owns your physical body. And that's the law. And on the back of the Social Security card will be numbers in red. On the front will be in blue or black, but on the back will be in red. The numbers on the back of a Social Security card in red designate your body. It is the serial number of your stock. Your body is bought and sold through the use of your birth certificate. And if you could get your original birth certificate back, you would find that on the back of the birth certificate are all the banks around the world. All over the world, banks have used your birth certificate.
If you're not competent enough or care enough to go study the law and take your own sovereign status and say, hey, government, I'm competent, I read the law, I want to take my own person back, I can take care of myself, thank you. If you don't do that, they're going to do it for you. Wake up.
And that is why they can make these treaties with these alien beings in exchange for certain information, certain technology, because they own you.
Did the U.S. government make a treaty with aliens to allow them to abduct citizens? According to Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper, they did. 34th President Dwight D. Eisenhower allegedly did this on vacation in Palm Springs. So according to the book, in 1953, astronomers noticed strange craft orbiting the equator, and through radio contact, they were able to set up a face-to-face meeting with the beings on those ships. The movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a fictionalized version of it. Meanwhile, a race of humanoid aliens landed in the Homestead Air Force Base in Florida and said, whatever you do, do not make a deal with those aliens that are circling the equator. Now, this race of humanoid aliens said, we would like to help you, but with your spiritual development. And they said, we won't be giving you any technology because you're not even spiritually evolved enough to handle the technology you already have. And these humanoid aliens said the only way we're going to help you is if you agree to disarm all nuclear weapons. And the US government was like, nah, we're going to work with those aliens that you say are evil because they're going to give us weapons. So President Eisenhower planned a trip to Palm Springs, and the meeting was set to happen at Edwards Air Force Base. Palm Springs, Edwards Air Force Base. And this happened on February 20th of 1954. According to this, Eisenhower was spirited to the Air Force Base. So the aliens would give us advanced technology, weapons, and the aliens would agree to not make treaties with any other Earth nation in exchange for abducting humans on a limited but periodic basis, with the stipulation that humans would not be harmed and would not remember the experience, and that they would be returned to their point of abduction, that they would have to provide a list of everyone that they've abducted to a group which was then developed called the Majesty 12, sometimes referred to as Majestic 12 or MJ12. Now, according to the Washington Post article, the Nordics were the humanoid race, and it was the Greys that we ended up doing the deal with. President Eisenhower gave a statement that he was only in Palm Springs to go to the dentist, and he attended church in Los Angeles the next morning.
In 1954, Dwight Eisenhower signed what's known as the Greada Treaty with the alien Grey race. In exchange for shared alien technologies, the Greys were allowed to abduct a number of humans annually for medical examination. The Greys also demanded anonymity from the public. A short time later, human technology took a giant leap forward with circuit chips, fiber optics, and lasers. The Greada Treaty is still active today, but the number of human abductions has increased, despite objections from the world governments.
I'm gonna leave y'all with that information. I love y'all. I hope y'all have a good rest of y'all day. All right, so I'm gonna leave y'all with that information. Be on the lookout for part 2. I hope y'all have a good rest of y'all day. Stay happy, stay elevated, stay in ascension, and have a good rest of y'all day. And in the nighttime, enjoy your travels. I love y'all.